Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking at two of the most underrated champions, and these are champions that are not only good for solo queue, but I think will actually be pocket picks at Worlds as well. Both of these champions are actually really good on their own anyway, but because they aren't played very often, it just gives you like a natural advantage. Like people aren't expecting what you're going to do, they're not expecting kind of damage you can output, and you're going to catch them off guard quite a lot. So first up is going to be vel'koz, this kind of weird alien thing that Spazzy plays a lot, and we're going to be focusing mainly on the mid side of him, even though he's actually a very good support as well. So vel'koz doesn't really have much utility, right? He just has an absolute butt ton of AoE damage, and that's actually kind of long range damage as well. It's actually kind of rare for a champion to have a huge amount of burst and a huge amount of poke as well. Like normally it's one or the other, but these champions that have both are really good in the meta right now. He has a pretty good lane phase, he can kill people if he gets enough poke off, and a lot of that poke is long range as well, which means it's relatively easy to trade with someone without taking any damage in return. It's actually a little bit weird, right? Like he has good wave clear, but it's also kind of bad at the same time. It's really weird. Your W is amazing for wave clear, but if you don't have enough damage to clear it with that, then your E and your Q are pretty much useless. Like they're not going to do anything. So this next pit is the part that really catches you off guard, and he does an absolute crap ton of true damage in his kit, mainly with his passive. So I'm just like you guys, like I'm not really used to playing against vel'koz, and sometimes he's going to hit me with a spell. It doesn't really do too much damage. I'm like, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. Then he's going to hit me with like two spells, he'll proc his passive, and suddenly my health just disappears, and that is a huge amount of damage that I just wasn't expecting. The way you kind of want to think about vel'koz is he's like an Orianna or a Lux or a Xerath. Like if you ever run into any one of them, you're in for a really bad time. Like with Ori or the others, she wants enemies to run at her so she can place her ball and catch them, and vel'koz is the same. He's not great at chasing people, but he's great at counter engaging. So vel'koz can also be played as a support. He has really high base damage like we said, and that means you only need levels to do damage. You don't really need items. It's the same as like brand support or Zyra and why they work. Like when you're a support, you are low income, you don't have much gold, and especially not early, so that means you need to have high base damage and not high scalings. vel'koz just gives you a huge amount of damage in lane. He gives you good poke and knock up, and it can often turn into like a free farm lane for your AD because the enemy AD is constantly low from your harass. Now the problems with vel'koz and why he's not played more often is kind of the biggest thing is he has no escape. Like he's no mobility, he's pretty easy to get ganked, and if you get behind, there's not really a way to protect yourself. The other thing is it takes a while for your damage to ramp up, so you are weaker early than some other similar mid laners like Xerath, Ziggs, Lux. These guys are all going to output more damage than you before you get some items and levels. Even though you have really high range, if you ever do actually get close to people, you are pretty squishy and you are very low health, which means if you don't build any defense, you're going to die very quickly. I think vel'koz has actually been good for a while now, but the biggest reason why he hasn't played more is just his true damage component, like mainly his passive, is not that easy to understand, and it's not as easy to grasp as other champions. This kind of just tends to put people off because you can't instantly play him and be good with him, but he's worth the time to learn. So next one has been flying under the radar for a little while. Did you get it? Another little pun there? Okay, yeah. So he was considered a pretty mid-tier jungler a while ago, but he's receiving a lot of little small buffs in recent patches. Like his ultimate cooldown was reduced, the increased range on his ult, the fear speed up, and these are bringing him up to the level of the other junglers. There are a few other things as well, just like kind of itemization wise. He's really good with Bathe the Ruined King, and he's very good versus bruisers in this current meta, like the Garens and stuff, and he can duel the top tier junglers like Nidalee, Elise as well, just because of his kit. The new Devourer has also kind of bumped him up, but he's good with Devourer or Warrior. Like Warrior is more early to mid game pressure, and Devourer is just better kind of mid to late game, and attack speed works really well with his passive as well, which is another little benefit. Nocturne in himself has great clear and good sustain. He has incredible gank potential after level 6 and really high base damage with his boosts from his Q and his E, like the passive on his E. Not only does he have a lot of damage, he also has a lot of utility. Like he has his fear, he has his spell shield, which is really strong, and also his ultimate. Like yes, his ultimate is damage and it's a gap closer kind of thing, but also the shroud affects the entire map. When Nocturne does get his level 6, he's really good at ganking, but he's also incredibly good at counter ganking, and you don't even really have to try to do it. All you have to do is be around the right side of the map. Like that isn't too difficult to do, and you don't really need to read the enemy jungler too much. You just have to kind of be there, pressure roll, and dive in to help your team. I kind of already hinted at this a little bit with the utility side, but his ultimate can cause a lot of chaos in team fights, and it's really strong for picking off enemies out of position. Like if you ever catch anyone alone, you are really good 1v1. You're just just going to find them, bend them over, and spank them until they cry. While I do think Nocturne is really good, he does have some glaring weaknesses, I guess, and the biggest one is that he is weak when he's behind, because you kind of want to be building damage so that you can 1v1 people and you can have a huge team fight effect, and if you get behind, you can't really afford to do that, but you can kind of be a utility tank. This kind of comes from him being underrated and people don't play with him very often, but a lot of people expect Nocturne to be the one engaging, whereas actually Nocturne is really good when a team fight is already going and then he uses his ultimate to cause some chaos in the fight and dive on their back line. So that is all for this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you find some success with Nocturne or vel'koz, and obviously share your underrated picks down in the comments below. But that is all for this time, so I'll catch you in my next video.